Hello, good evening. Welcome to Rooted in Wisdom, a daily dose of Donna. Today is are we episode 52? Wow, so amazing. So, anyway, as my headline says, this is about a sneaky trick to influence and persuade both yourself and others. So, hopefully, my little catchy title there will get you to pay attention a little bit because this little sneaky trick is something I learned many years ago in my early years of sales. I didn't really know it was a thing, but it's a technique that is used in sales all the time to get someone to change their state or the energy of the direction, maybe a conversation or an experience or a situation or whatever. So you can use this in any area of your life. So if you want to change a pattern of your own or a habit, however you want to call that, a habit of thinking, a habit of doing, a situation that keeps occurring, you can use this technique. But you can also use this technique in your relationship with others, whether it's in your personal life or in business. So in any area that you want to create a change of a pattern, a thought, or a situation and change the flow of the energy to interrupt it and take it down a different path or just pause it and slow it down, you can use this technique. So what is the technique? The technique is pattern interrupt. Now, this technique, I think, originated in it's a coaching technique and theory. I completely lost my train of thought on what I'm trying to say here. In neuro-linguistic programming, or most people know it as NLP. Now, again, when I learned this technique in sales years ago, I didn't know what NLP was, and I didn't really know that it was a thing. It was just something that I learned worked. So it's become kind of a unconscious for me now. In some ways, but in others, it's a very conscious technique that I use with my clients. So here's what it is. So pattern interrupt is really, it's a product of the unconscious mind. Let me say it that way. So when we start getting, that's not right. What I just said was not right. Pattern interrupt is not a product of the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is all of these behaviors that we're doing on the daily, right? These things that are kind of automatic, like the way that we think, our actions, those habits that maybe we don't like about the way that we're being or doing something, and we want to change those, right? Those are the things that are kind of like the automatics for us. So pattern interrupt is how we break that unconscious to get into the conscious. So we want to be able to increase our consciousness and our presence in the present. How do we get in the present moment and out of this unconscious, repetitive practices or ways of being that don't serve our highest and best self, either in our relationships or in moving us toward our goals and who we desire to become. So pattern interrupt. So when a natural pattern is interrupted, we become highly influenceable. So this is what I want you to know about how this is a really can be a tricky, a sneaky little trick to influence and persuade yourself and others. Because if the things we're doing on automatic are the unconscious mind, the way that we break that pattern is to get us to be conscious. So pattern interrupt looks like this. So it could be you're rambling on about something, and maybe you're just, ranting, maybe it's in a negative flow, right? So this is how I interrupt my clients. So they're ranting on about something or going on and they're on repeat, right? Saying the same thing over and over again, or just on a negative thread. And then a pattern interrupt could be something that is totally unexpected to come into the conversation. So they might expect something like, oh, wow, that sounds terrible. Or wow, you sound really upset. Or, and then what happened? But a pattern interrupt is like, oh my God, did you see that show last night? Or, oh my gosh, did you hear that noise? Or you might say something that is totally unusual. So let's just say, so this is how you would use it in sales, because my early years were doing telemarketing, right? So in telemarketing, right, if someone's calling you, you know somebody who is calling you, right? And maybe you're anticipating what that call is going to be, because sometimes those people that call us, right, we already know what's going to be the first things out of their mouth, or what the experience is going to be in that conversation, because they'll just, you answer the phone, they say hello, and then they just start like, psh, right? So you want to do a pattern interrupt, because you don't want that. You're done with that, right? That's an old pattern. It's a broken pattern, and you've changed. You're creating a boundary, or you're setting a new standard, or whatever it is. And so the way that we change that pattern with that person is by quickly saying or doing something that is totally unexpected. So if I were in sales and I was calling someone and they didn't know who I was, so let's just say it was a cold call, right? So I may be calling them and saying, instead of saying, oh, hi, this is Donna Nelson, and I'm from Wellness, and I'm, calling to see if you might be interested in changing your life. Instead of that, I might say something like, hey, I'm sure I'm the last person you'd want to hear from today. Or I always would used to say, hey, you don't know me, right? And that throws them off, because people aren't used to hearing someone say, hey, you don't know me. And I know people hate getting phone calls. So it's that kind of thing. So you're doing a pattern interrupt, giving them something that is totally unusual to the normal pattern of the way things flow. You're breaking the natural pattern. So when we break that pattern, we're no longer in the unconscious. We are now in the conscious, because when that pattern is broken, the brain is like, hey, what just happened? Wait, what? That's unusual, right? And so now that brings us to our thinking brain. Now we're back on on alert, if you will, right? Because now our brain is paying attention instead of being on automatic. And that can bring us into the present moment. And it's in that gap between the conscious and the unconscious that is the most influential time to persuade someone in what you say at that moment, at that next time, because now you have their attention. So it's a fun little trick. And again, it can work in any relationship. So anytime, let's just say you're in an argument, right? And the energy is like going in a totally negative direction. And you could just do a complete pattern interrupt. Now, I don't know what might work for someone you're having an argument with, because it could be, a life partner or significant other, or it could be at work, right? So you have to identify what that right pattern interrupt is, right? So if it was someone at work, you might not, in the middle of that, say, you're really special to me. I really love you, right? Nobody would be expecting that in the middle of an argument. But at work, it could be something like, it totally depends, right? I'm saying something like may not make sense in the situation, because it depends on the argument or the negotiation. But you could say, John, that's an outstanding tie. Or, Deb, you look fantastic in red. By the way, I just wanted to say while it's on my mind, and you can interrupt the pattern, then they get all confused. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. And now you can take it in a completely different direction. Or now they realize what they were doing and they can shift. So it's all about creating a new energy to get out of that, to break that pattern. But now that's how we do it with other people, right? But I mean, also in say a negotiation or an argument in a business relationship, you can interject a different question, right? In saying, so if somebody is, going on and they're, stating their position, you can do a pattern interrupt by just asking a question. I think it's more powerful when you just make a statement because they're like, what? But when you ask a question that it could be completely unrelated to this, right? So they might be talking about fruits and vegetables, and you can ask a question about cars and trains, or gasoline, or some other thing, right? That throws them off their pattern. You could come back and it can be somewhat relevant to the whole overall thing, but it's just about something that's going to break their pattern to bring them to a more consciousness, to then be able to get in the present moment so that you can talk about what really matters most, or bring them to what you want to talk about. So but how do you do this for yourself? So when you want to change one of your own habits, right? So it could be a thought process, it could be a situation that you get yourself into over and over. It could be a behavior, right? An action that you take, or an inaction, right? So how do you do that? You create your own pattern interrupt. And that could be a number of different things, right? So it could be a physical thing that you do. I learned, I think when I went to Tony Robbins, what year was that? Maybe 2017, to his Unleash the Power Within, and he had us do a thing where you could create a word, right? When you want to do a pattern interrupt. So you do a word or a physical posture, right? So it might be something like, yes, it's just an action, right? Like something to like immediately trigger you to like, oh shit, I'm doing that thing or I'm not doing that thing. And so it could just be this, right? Just whatever, something like that makes you do that, and it's reminding you, I'm doing that again, stop doing it. It brings you to the conscious from the unconscious. But another thing, I've seen people do this, and there's different belief systems on this, but I mean, this is one of my hair ties. And you could put it on your wrist. And people do this with rubber bands, right? And then every time they want to create a pattern interrupt, they catch themselves in that old pattern. They would snap this, and over time, even when you don't snap it, the pattern reminds you of that snapping. Like you go to that behavior. Your mind automatically remembers the physical sensation of that snap. So some people feel like, it's a negative thing and that it's reinforcing negativity on yourself. It's all about perspective. It's whatever. If it gets you to change your dysfunctional behavior into something more positive and empowering, then do that. So it could be anything. So that's how you increase your consciousness, get more in the present moment, because when we are in the present moment, we have more choice and we are more empowered, and more creative than working on our automatic patterns that for most of us haven't served us really well because we haven't done a good job of creating great habits or recreating great habits. So that's how you can start creating great habits, but also increase your influence and persuade others using pattern interrupt. All right, that's my lesson for today. I will see you tomorrow. Good night.